go.
How are we?
We are good.
Okay.
We are back, and thank you very much for your patience. As I said before, without our audience, the show cannot go on. So it was important for us to make some adjustments so everyone can enjoy this conversation. Raphael, you were saying before the break
Yeah.
um, that you apologized to this teacher that you caused to fail our exam. That
Yes.
was noble of you, sir.
Well,
and
the,
and so my next question is, what drives you? What makes you get up every day and do what you do?
well, a strong belief in God as head of my life, and the realization that just having life uh, must mean more than just getting up and going to work and having a good time, and that we all have a purpose for which we've been born and created. And so we need to find out what that is as early in life as possible
Mm-hmm.
and as quickly as possible, and set about living out that purpose. So um, what I say here, I can tell you that it's not something that I have always known, but this is over the last 5 or 6 years I've had, I would say, several epiphanies, if I can use that
Mm-hmm.
term. And so for me, I get up every day with a renewed sense of vigor and purpose, that I have things to accomplish, and at every second of every minute of every day must count. I don't have any more uh, periods of being bored and just feeling restless. And if I'm restless if I'm not achieving something, and
Mm-hmm.
that's not to say that I don't take time to relax, but even that must come out of something. It must not just be that we amble through life from birth to death without fulfilling anything. And so I have a great sense of purpose, and that I'm created to serve, and that is what motivates me every day, actually.
You've grown up among lots of politicians, or I should let me put it this way: when we were growing up, there were lots of politicians in the country, lots of role models, and so on. And so I asked this: which politician impressed you most as a child?
Well, it was interesting because I tell you, as a boy in Golden Grove, President Burnham, he was then Prime Minister, would visit our home,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes on horseback and so forth. And so, as a little boy, 4 and 5, seeing this man coming on horseback, uh, or coming, was quite a sight to behold. Um, as I grew older, I actually became very good friends with Mr. Burnham's children, his daughters, and that gave me insight into him from a more personal level. And again, many of the myths that uh, we hear, they're just not true, because the family, very, they're conserved. I remember uh, once in Barbados leaving a pipe on, and Melanie saying you can't waste water. I never saw extravagance in them. I never, you know, saw many of the things that people spoke about. Burnham was considered, called racist and all kinds of things. I don't know, but I would, at Belfield, I would see that the person who he turned to cook for him the most was a nice elderly East Indian woman uh, who wore that kerchief on the head. She, this couldn't be a man who hated or distrusted East Indians, so, because she was the one who cooked for him more than most others that I would see. And then I also, when we moved to Sir Bryanville in Georgetown, my neighbors and very good friends were Dr. Jagan's nephews, Kevin and Raymond Ali. And so I got us growing up with them too. I was able to see the Jagan side of the family. And, going to New Haven a lot and be around the Jagan family, the Freezes and the Jagans, and just be around New Haven where they lived. Going to LBI, where Dr. Jagan spent quite a bit of time recreationally playing tennis and swimming and so forth. We'd be there. I remember one day, Raymond Ali, my friend, turning to his father, he says, "Daddy, why doesn't Uncle Chetty give up?" We were in the car, and the father turned to me and says, because he's doing something noble for Guyana and he can't give up. So I grew with a sense of admiration for both men. But I had the closest relationship with Desmond Hoyt, if I can put it that way. But certainly, I didn't grow. My mind was not shaped so as to hate or despise, but to respect. And like I said, from dealing internally with those two families, I did not see hatred amongst the Jagans against Africans or against anyone, and neither did I see hatreds amongst the Burnhams against East Indians or other persons. And that is just, I'm sure that other people may have other stories to tell, but certainly being a young man and so a teenager and growing up within and around these two families, I never saw many of the things that both gentlemen were accused of. So I admired them, but like I said, it was only through Mr. Hoyt that I was birthed into politics, so to speak, and I learned um, a tremendous amount from him. Apart from Mr. Hoyt, I have a fairly close relationship with Mr. P.J. Patterson of Jamaica, who has acted as a kind of a mentor for me and to me over the last decade, and that I appreciate. So from time to time, I would look to him for advice, counsel, and I admire him and what he's done and the profile that he has achieved and maintained, especially after demitting office as Prime Minister of Jamaica. And I'll tell you a story that he shared with me, which I think I have permission to share. We were chatting once recently, and he said to me he had a recent birthday celebration, and he said his greatest achievement, one of the greatest achievements he's had in life, was extending an invitation to his birthday for Edward Siaga, who was, of course, as you know, the leader of the JLP of Jamaica and his sworn arch enemy, because Jamaica had some bloody days in the 1980s and so forth. But he says, Raphael, Edward came and sat, ate, and danced at my party. So the point he was making that here was a man with whom there was tremendous animosity. Many lives were lost in Jamaica. You know how their politics can be, and the point he's saying to me that at the end of the day we are all in a struggle for betterment for people, and it's important not to carry the baggage of hatred around, because he was able, as I said, to invite a person that many would consider to be the greatest enemy he's ever had, to come to his birthday, an intimate birthday celebration. And that person not only came, he said, but sat, enjoyed the food, and danced and celebrated. So that's a lesson for me, because in the way I practice politics, I try not to denigrate and to insult and to get too nasty and mean. Others may do that to me, but I've resolved that in my politics, I am not going to go to certain levels against anyone, because we're all passing through.
Yes.
And we all have to give an account, and we're not going to be holding offices forever. we're just custodians, stewards, in a way of the responsibility that is in our hands right now. And sometimes you need to look at things through the eyes of the other person. Is there anything that I did or I am doing that could have that or could cause this person to see me in this way? Or is it my associations, or it could be past hurts and events in a person's life that could influence things. UC Quayana, I've met him, but I've never really had the good fortune of sitting at his feet, so to speak, and hearing from him. But I've read quite a bit of what he's written, and one of the things, he wrote a little booklet called entitled "No Guilty Race." But he was really making the point that every race in Guyana has done something against the other. So when it's like Jesus saying, "Which who among you is
Without
without sin, you can cast the first stone." You see, Kwayana is saying that all, all, and that's something that people will not readily admit. All at some point in time in our recent history, we've all done something against the other. So the message there is really one of reconciliation, not one of extermination and total annihilation or damnation. But the truth is, we've got to find a way to we may not like each other, but we've got to accept the reality that we're all sharing the same geographic space, and circumstances are such that the country can't just be divided into two or three. It's too now integrated. I think maybe just after after independence, that may have been a slim there may have been a slim possibility for something like that. But right now, Ghana is too integrated. The people are mixing. You can go to Linden and find a person who has relatives on the quarantine. I could go to Maruka or in the Pomeroon, and I find people vending coming all the way from Mahaika to sell their products in Region One or Maruka or in the Pomeroon. So we've got to learn to, if not love each other, at least to respect each other. That's very
I
important.
know that you've said that, and listening to you talk about these majesty of political personalities, I must say. Forbes Burnham, the late president, Chetty Jagan, um, and Desmond Hoyt, and these people. You not to forget your parents and their influences. I think of a raw diamond or a diamond in the rough being passed through a process where each and every one of these cutters shaped, sanded, and molded you into who you've become today. And I must say that you're doing quite a great job. And so I asked this question with all your experiences, and if I forgot PJ Patterson, all your experiences and exposure of all the committees you have either chaired, or been a part of. Which of these you believe, if allowed to grow and be effective, can make a significant difference in raising the living standards of the poor in Guyana?
Could you repeat that? I missed it. Of
Okay,
all the
all the committees you have either chaired or been a part of, right? Which of them you
oh
believe?
oh well, my apart from law, my other area of expertise is national security.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're dealing with national security, it's called the guns versus butter issue. Do you spend more money on food, or do you spend more money on weapons? I think that everything is integrated. There's no peace without justice. There's no peace without order. And so I believe in an ordered and orderly society. I believe that my work in constitutional reform, I've done quite a bit with that. I've been on most of the committees that have reviewed our national security strategies in the last decade and more. I've been involved in that. So some of these things don't appear to directly affect poverty, but I remember, but they do. in 2000, the World Bank published a study called Voices of the Poor, and it is a fantastic publication. It's a bit dated now, but they took a sampling from around the world and what really constitutes poverty. And if you, for example, if you were in Sarajevo at that time, or Bosnia or somewhere, poverty was the inability to go to market to get a loaf of bread because there were snipers shooting at you. And if I can bring that closer to home, on the news today, the headlines were about 3 or 4 murders that took place between yesterday afternoon and this morning, and it occurred to me that this is what defines Guyana now: a lack of safety and security. And if a person cannot, having worked hard honestly, be able to have a minimum of rest and peace in her home or his home, then that person is just as poor. That's the point I want to make. That person is just as poor because they cannot enjoy life, and the fruits of labor. And so uh, I would like to continue, and I have been working to help to relieve our issues of crime and security in Guyana. And I think once we settle that, alongside, of course, other things like joblessness and so forth, we can usher in a new dispensation, so to speak, of confidence and assurance that Guyana is a place that people can come and invest in. That persons, Guyanese by the thousands who live abroad and want to come home, retire home, can come and not be preyed upon and attacked in their home. So everything is important, and so I would like to put my expertise where I am best suited, rather than running around doing everything. I did, at the postgraduate level, of course, study quite a bit of development economics, but I wouldn't consider myself to be an economist. But I have an appreciation for poverty reduction strategies and policies, and how they are applied and measured, and how they could be targeted and better implemented. So I can say I'm a bit of a jack of all trades, but my comfort zone is anything to do with governance,
Mhm.
and security, and of course law as an offshoot of those.
When